Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Michael Keene. I'm Vice President of the Cybersecurity Division here at ADT Protection One. It's a great day to be with all of you. I'm really excited to have so many business owners online, in part because we have a terrific panel of guest speakers. Today's topic, ransomware's risk to your business, is such a relevant one, especially if you take a look at just really any news article that comes across the wire. So to provide some perspective on that, I am joined by Rich Aycock. He's the Director of Cybersecurity here at Protection One ADT. Welcome, Rich.
Hi, everyone.
I'm also really excited to bring in a customer's perspective. Cindy Sparks is the Compliance Manager at Conklin Insurance. Cindy, it's great to have you with us. Welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
And then finally we have UJ. UJ is the group product manager from really a leader in antivirus protection in Bitdefender. UJ, looking forward to chatting with you as well.
My pleasure.
Today's format will be 30 minutes in duration. What we'll do is we'll hear from each of our speakers providing some different perspective around ransomware's risk to business. And we'll save some room in the end of the half hour for some questions. Now, what's really great about our format today is you also have a chat feature as part of your interface. You should be able to log in and submit a question throughout. We'll go ahead and collate those throughout the 30-minute presentation, and I'll address as many of those as we have time for at the end. So feel free to go ahead and bring those questions forward as you see fit. So with that as an introduction, let's go ahead and advance it to the next slide. And let me start with you here, Rich. You know, when we start talking a little bit about the evolution of cybercrime, it seems to be just an ever-changing environment. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about the stage? How did ransomware come about? And talk to us a little bit about this evolution of cybercrime.
Sure, thanks, Michael. So when you think of cybercrime, you might think of some of the more traditional threats. Basically, criminals looking to either destroy or steal your valuable data. At this point, everyone's probably had to replace a credit card at some point because it's compromised. Everyone can bring to mind some of the larger data breaches that have been in the news headlines that have probably caused you some headaches and maybe changed some of your shopping habits. So this traditional type of threat is very common and very widespread. But because, ironically, of how successful it's been and how many records have been stolen, the payoff is actually decreasing. Below, you can see on the slide some of the approximate going rates for some stolen information, from credit card numbers to more personally identifiable information. And this is more valuable because that can be used for identity theft. The highest prices paid right now are actually for medical records due to the amount of personally identifiable information contained. So this traditional theft is still valuable if it can be pulled off, but it is time intensive. It takes a lot of labor to infiltrate networks and steal this data. It's expensive. These exploits used, the expertise needed, cost a lot of money. And the skill set is high. Hackers that can pull off these kind of attacks are in high demand. Also, even if you're able to steal some data, the payouts might not be that high. You can find online credit card numbers that have been unverified for as cheap as you can get a couple credit card numbers for less than $1. So, given all that changing landscape, criminals have found that rather than go through all that effort to steal your data and sell it to someone else, the person that actually values your data the most highly is you. So if they can separate you from your own data, you are the one who will pay the most to get it back.
Yeah, that really is some compelling information. Rich, and I can see how that criminal activity is changing and evolving. So let's go ahead and transition into the topic of ransomware. For those that might not be as familiar with just that term, ransomware is obviously when a cyber criminal steals some intellectual property, holds it, and holds it, quite frankly, ransom until that business owner pays it. So why don't you talk a little bit about ransomware specifically? Why is that kind of the next new thing? Why is it so popular, and why is it that we're seeing it so frequently on the news channel?
That's right, Michael. And the reason that ransomware has been so successful lately is because it solves a lot of the problems with cybercrime that I described before. A lot of the time needed is taken away. These exploits are available on the dark web, and they can be bought for pretty cheap. They can be operated by that don't necessarily have the same level of skill set. This can also be a great way for criminal enterprises to make money and to make money fast. That's why this is being used by terrorist networks, by rogue states, and by criminal organizations. This type of threat has been so successful that in 2016, ransomware surpassed a $1 billion industry, and that has no signs of slowing right now. It's so successful, actually, that these criminal networks can support customer support organizations. So if you have problem doing the actual purchasing of Bitcoins, transacting in Bitcoins, the kind of things that people might not actually have the technical aptitude to do, don't worry. There is helpful, friendly customer support that can help you pay criminals to get your data back.
That's absolutely daunting, and it certainly makes sense. I think the part that is screaming out to me is the idea that ransomware is changing because the price of entry is small and the payout is larger. So it's obviously what's fueling that ransomware outbreak. So before I let you go, let's go ahead and transition specifically over to WannaCry. Now, this was a specific type of ransomware. Obviously, we saw it outbreak all over the world, quite frankly. So let's talk a little bit about WannaCry specifically, Rich. What made that so different? Why did it spread so quickly all across the world?
Sure. So the reason that WannaCry and ransomwares like it are going to be so successful is that people are starting to become more familiar with the traditional ways ransomware is spread. Everyone knows if you get an email from someone you don't know, or even from someone you do know that you don't expect to get, you're not going to click on any of the links. You are definitely not going to click and download that attachment. The problem is those traditional methods of keeping yourself safe through employee training, through email filtering, through blocking some of those older threat vectors are no longer as effective. And WannaCry was really the first example of that. WannaCry spread using exploits that could be used on unpatched devices in older operating systems that really required no interaction by the end user. These type of either drive-by attacks that attack BYOD devices and then spread within a business network using new exploits that have been released on the black market are going to become more and more common. So the traditional things people have been using to keep themselves safe won't necessarily help with these future attacks. That's why really keeping yourself prepared through adequate protection, not just through user education, is what's going to be necessary to stop some of these attacks that we're going to start to see over the next few months and really for the rest of the year.
Certainly some informative thoughts there, Rich. I mean, the idea that the cybercrime is constantly evolving. It's evolving right now into something that's really taken the economy by storm in ransomware, and different strains of that ransomware really show the sophistication of this criminal activity. Before we transition over to Cindy, is there anything that you'd like to share before we transition to Cindy?
Yeah, I would just say that with this WannaCry attack, you saw hospitals, you saw government institutions being protected. And if you asked any one of them before the attack if they were protected, they probably would have said yes. Yes, they were. They thought they were safe. So as these threats evolve, it's important to really take a look at your cybersecurity stance and make sure that you're protected.
Yeah, well stated. Thanks for your thoughts, Rich. Let's bring in Cindy now. Cindy Sparks, as I mentioned, is the compliance manager at Cochran Insurance. Cindy, are you out there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, it's great to have you here. Let's kind of bring in kind of that business owner's perspective. Why don't you first just tell us a little bit about your business. What does Cochran Insurance do?
Cochran Insurance is an independent insurance agency that provides all lines of insurance to both businesses and individuals.
And where are you based out of, Cindy?
We're out of Lombard, Illinois.
Oh, perfect. And so when we start talking about cybercrime, first of all, like in your role as compliance manager, I guess what motivated you to even start talking about cyber protection and protecting against things like ransomware?
Well, we used to use free versions of antivirus malware protection, and we started, over the last few years, there's been such a high rate of cyber liability insurance that businesses are being asked to carry. And so we look at that. We looked at the fact that we have had a couple of our computers just shut down. We didn't actually have money requested, but they get in and they shut the whole thing down, and we just can't lose our computers. So we decided to go to a more professional type of system, which was Protection One was also our alarm company for many, many years, and they offered Bitdefender, and we decided that we needed to step it up so that we could actually make our insurance that we carry on our business feel better about what they're protecting.
Yeah, well stated there, Cindy. And I guess if you had any, words of advice for other business owners out there, I'm kind of thinking through even one of Rich's statements. What's kind of the words of advice that you can help with other business owners out there that might feel that they are currently protected, or maybe that this isn't a big issue? Do you have any parting words of advice for the group?
Well, I think anyone who has a computer that is attached to the internet, it needs to be professionally protected. It's just too scary these days, and a lot of businesses can't afford to keep buying computers to replace their equipment. So I think it's a necessary investment.
And certainly when you're talking about that element of trust, I mean, you're trading on your good name in your line of work, and that element of customer trust is paramount. So certainly that peace of mind probably rings very true with you as well.
Yes, yes.
Well, Cindy, thank you for your time today. I appreciate you joining today's panel.
My pleasure.
And let's talk a bit more about this Bitdefender solution. By way of introduction, before I bring it over to you, Jay, I just wanted to specifically mention what a great piece of information this was. There was absolutely not one business that was being protected by Bitdefender's antivirus solution that was impacted by the WannaCry ransomware. And what a great message that is when you saw kind of the international void of antivirus protection. You saw that across the globe. So that's absolutely fantastic. So I'm really excited to have UJ from Bitdefender here. UJ, are you out there? And welcome.
Thank you. And yes, I'm here.
All right, well, terrific. Hey, before we start going into the details, let's just kind of remind everybody, we got some great business owners out there. I kind of challenged you around, hey, what are some good standard best practices that you're seeing in terms of cybersecurity overall? So could we start maybe on the next slide? What can businesses do right now to make sure that they're better protected?
Certainly. So we work with a lot of customers and partners, and when it comes to cybersecurity, especially ransomware, we recommend few things. First, back up your data. Customers normally back up their data to protect themselves from maybe database corruption or hardware failures or natural disaster, but now they have another reason to back up their data, and that's ransomware. Secondly, we recommend to our customers, educate your end users. Education is a key part of the fight against malware. End users continue to remain the weak links, so we recommend that you educate your end users on a regular basis. Third, update your operating system. We see so many customers, they continue to use old operating system. And remember, sometimes it takes only one outdated system to infect the entire network. WannaCry was a great example of it. So please update your operating system and make sure that you patch your systems frequently. And last but not least, invest in forward-looking protection technology. For example, I see so many customers, they continue to rely on a free AV solution, or if they're paying for an AV solution, they renew their current solution only because maybe it is convenient to them, or maybe they're afraid of the change because sometimes the change can be disruptive, or maybe they are relying on their AV vendor to evolve to keep up with this modern threat landscape. So we've seen a lot of customers that have gone very comfortable with this idea. So we strongly recommend to them, hey, invest in forward-looking protection technology. I've seen some customers that use two traditional products. You don't need two products to solve one problem. So if you have the right solution, you can stay ahead in the game and defeat the bad guys.
Hey, well stated there, UJ, and I think those are some terrific just best practices, just the idea of backing up, making sure we're not clicking on malicious emails and links. We're running updated patches, software, operating systems. We keep that forward-looking mindset. Very, very well stated. Sometimes it's probably more easily said than done and executed. So let's go ahead and transition into kind of your product in particular. You know, I was really impressed in hearing the news that Bitdefender protected against that WannaCry ransomware. And I know that there are probably some technical people and some non-technical people on today's call. So maybe you can kind of walk us through really what differentiates the Bitdefender product. What strategies are in place that really separate Bitdefender's ability to protect against cybercrime, and really what sets it apart and makes it just a little bit different, maybe with some other options that are out there?
Absolutely. So the key differentiator of our technology is what we call our adaptive layer endpoint security. What I mean by that, it's designed to protect customers against full spectrum of modern threats. Because as you know, modern attacks are launched in a variety of ways. There is not just one way that a hacker uses to launch attacks. So we have a set of technologies that provide coverage for full spectrum of these threats. And we do it with speed, accuracy, low administrative overhead, and minimal system impact. So it's not the products not available in the market to address security problems. What happens, though, is oftentimes these products are very complex, very hard to manage, and as you want more protection, sometimes you run into challenges where you have to write a lot of exception rules, you have to tune your policies, and it becomes administrative nightmare. So what we do is we have designed our product. We have different layers of security. I'll go over them in a little more detail. When all these layers are designed to work together and make sure that we give you protection, but at the same time, these technologies work out of the box, so you don't have to spend time configuring the product. So in terms of technology, it combines what I call preventive controls, multi-stage, non-signature-based detection techniques, and automatic response in a single platform. There's a single client that you have to manage, and that gives you a full range of protection technologies. So what you see on the screen are these different layers of protection. We have a set of preventive controls that reduces the attack surface. For example, application control, content control, firewall. If you understand endpoint security products, you may be familiar with these controls. What they allow you to do is they allow you to reduce the attack surface. For example, we prevent access to malicious sites. What that means from benefit perspective is that end users would not be able to go to those sites, and therefore you will be able to keep them safe. So one way to think about this is like low-hanging fruit. But as you know, attackers are sneaky, and they can somehow manage to get in your environment. We saw that a couple of weeks ago with WannaCry. And therefore, we have a set of detection technologies, and we don't rely just on signatures. We have our own behavioral technology, and these different layers of technology work together to provide protection. And I've highlighted those technologies in blue. So one of the key technologies that we have is our supervised machine learning. So this machine learning technology, we've been working on it for many years. So it's a fairly mature technology. And what it allows us to do, it allows us to predict and block threats. So based on certain behavior pattern, we train our machine learning model. And if we see a particular file demonstrating malware-like behavior, we can protect it from being successful. So what happened 3 weeks ago with WannaCry, one of the machine learning models that we designed 4 years ago. Remember, ransomware is not a new problem. It started about 4 years ago, and our data scientists had developed this machine learning model, and it has been there in our product for 4 years. That particular machine learning model was able to catch that threat, and therefore we were able to keep our customers safe from this particular instance of ransomware. It's in addition to this machine learning models, we also have exploit prevention technology. And as you know, exploit is a very common way attackers get control of the system and do bad things. So we have a set of exploit prevention capabilities that protect memory of the system and also the vulnerable applications. For example, browsers, Microsoft Office Suite, all these tools your end user use, they are often vulnerable, and that's what bad guys are doing. They're taking advantage of those vulnerabilities, and that's where exploit prevention technology comes into play. And lastly, we have a behavioral technology called Process Inspector, which operates on zero trust. So even though we have set of preventive controls, we have machine learning, we have exploit prevention, we still do not trust anyone. So we constantly monitor running processes on the endpoint, and if any process starts behaving maliciously, let's say in case of ransomware, you see a particular application trying to encrypt, and if we think that this behavior is abnormal, we will immediately take action, we will kill that process, and we will undo all the changes that malicious process made on the endpoint. So all these layers work together to keep your system safe. And we also have what we call ransomware vaccine. What it does is that it tricks ransomware into believing that the system is already infected. So this technology has been very effective in detecting known ransomware. So all these layers work together, and depending on the attack type, is able to provide protection. And the good news is that our product is designed to work out of the box with little or no configuration changes. And whenever a threat is found, we automatically take action. And that is one of the main reasons why we have been able to consistently outperform our competitors in various third-party tests, whether it is protection, whether it is performance, or whether it is ease of use. We also offer free trial. So if you want to learn more about these different technology and see them in action, you can always look at it. So this is the key differentiator we have in our offering, Michael.
You know, UJ, I really appreciate that element of redundancy and different layers of protection really speaks to me. You know, the idea that there's preventative layers, there's layers that are actually being executed in real time, and then even layers of protection that can retroactively go back in and offer a very comprehensive approach is something that made a lot of sense to me. So thank you for that clarity. And if you're okay, I'd like to have you stick around because I'm starting to get some really good questions that I think your perspective would be valued on these questions as well. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks again there, UJ. And then just as a reminder, as we start to wrap up the presentation part of the call, if you do have questions, I have about 5 or 6 that have already come in, which is fantastic. Go ahead and use that chat box that you might have as an option to go ahead and type in your question. And as we're collecting those, I just wanted to transition to the next slide and say, listen, you know, I really empathize with Cindy's perspective. You know, Cindy was a business owner that really understood the changing landscape and the need for kind of an increased professional service to combat that very progressive nature of cybercrime. And what we are doing at Protection One and ADT are really combining our 140-year history of a monitored security solution and applying it into the world of cybercrime. We're monitoring your network, we're monitoring your antivirus, monitoring your backup solutions in the same way that we've monitored your intrusion alarm or your fire alarm for the last 140 years. And this is what it really means, is we're the service arm to all the great product partners that we have with folks like Bitdefender. And what we're able to do is to make it a little bit easier for you as a business owner to stay focused on running your business while our team of servicemen and women install, configure, set up, monitor, and update your cyber solution. So a couple of easy things to think about that is if someone's trying to exploit your firewall or break into your network, how do you know? Well, having a monitored solution makes that a little bit easier for us to help you know about that. And what about mitigation? What happens if there is ultimately a breach? You know, what happens then? How are you going to, you know, continue to function and work in the same way that Cindy provided some perspective around in the event your business is attacked through some type of ransomware, for example. At the same time, we can help kind of optimize your configuration on your network to increase efficiency and make sure it's working as efficiently as possible. Content filtering, traffic shaping are a couple of easy examples, just to name two. And what about just the backup solutions? UJ had a great testimonial of just a good best practices backing up your solution, so making sure that you have not only a backup solution but a monitored one that's on a regular cadence and being double-checked to ensure that that backup occurred at the time that you wanted it to do. These are the types of services that Protection One and ADT layers on top of our terrific product partnerships. So I'll leave it there for now. I would just kind of conclude today's call before I transition over to some great Q&A with a call to action. On the next slide, you have some great contact information. I put my personal email on there. You can shoot me a note. I also have a colleague in Zach Morris that would love to hear you as well. You know, what we really specialize in is really just free, no obligation security assessments. Like I said, we have a 140-year history in monitored security solutions. Cybersecurity is just a natural extension to that, and we want to make sure businesses like yours are protected. So if you want to talk a little bit more, that's how you get a hold of us. All right, so let's go ahead and transition over to some questions. Let me start with you, Rich. There's a really good question here. It's, hey, we mentioned the word patch. What is a patch? I think it was under the context of a patch to an operating system. Maybe you could put that in different words and just kind of remind everybody what that is.
Sure. So the reason patches and updates are important is, you know, as operating systems are released, as software is released, there are always going to be flaws and things that are going to be found over time. So companies release updates and patches to make sure that those flaws are corrected and so that users of their programs aren't exposed. You know, everybody's familiar with Windows updates. The problem is some of these updates can not be done automatically. Sometimes it depends on your configuration whether things are going to be done automatically. And in certain business situations, that doesn't make sense. One of the reasons WannaCry was so successful in the hospital space is a lot of that legacy software needs to be used with older operating systems, such as Windows XP, which is no longer supported. The reason that these businesses weren't as protected was they were forced to use older unsecure operating systems. And as a response to WannaCry, Microsoft actually released a patch that solved that vulnerability. So staying ahead of those available exploits through patching and making sure all your operating systems, software, browsers, and everything is up to date is definitely important as a first line of defense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Rich. Thanks for that. UJ, I think I have a question here for you. There was a business owner that says, hey, I know Bitdefender did a really good job against blocking WannaCry, which is amazing. They wanted to know, has Bitdefender ever been a victim to other types of ransomware?
As far as protecting our customers, we haven't run into even one support case where customers would reach out to us and tell us that, hey, our system has been infected. So as far as if I purely go by the data that we have from our internal support cases, we haven't we have been successful in keeping our customers safe. So I don't know if that answers your question or not. Now, there could be an instance where somebody may have hit by ransomware and they never reach out to our support case, and it's kind of hard to tell. But we don't have any support case logged in last 4 years where customers said, hey, I've been infected by ransomware. And as far as our internal telemetry is concerned, we see what customers are experiencing on the endpoint, right, because we have a cloud-managed console. And we've seen that it's not just our machine learning capability. There are instances where our process inspector is able to catch ransomware. There are instances where a particular type of exploit that's been used by ransomware, we caught it using our exploit prevention capability. And there have been instances where ransomware vaccine did the trick. So we have all these different layers that I highlighted that provide protection against ransomware. And it was kind of a long answer, but I just wanted to make sure that I give enough context.
That's great, UJ. I appreciate your answer to that. And in respect for everybody's time, I think that is our time for today's webinar. As I mentioned, I wanted to keep it tight at the 30-minute segment. I would just go ahead and say if you want some additional information, you can go to adt.com/cyber. It's shown on the screen. There's an 800 number if you'd like to call that, as well as my personal email. You can go ahead and shoot me a note there. I appreciate everybody jumping online today, and have a safe and well-protected rest of the week. See you guys.
That concludes today's conference. Thank you for your participation. You may disconnect at this time.